March 24, 1944, 6:30 hours. RAF Snetterton Heath, Norfolk, England. Second Lieutenant Alan Magee sits in the briefing room with 179 other airmen from the 303rd Bomb Group, staring at a map of Germany that's covered in red markers indicating flak batteries and fighter bases. Today's target: Gotha, a city 200 miles inside German territory, home to a Messerschmitt aircraft factory producing Bf-110 night fighters. He's 21 years old, a ball turret gunner, which means he spends combat missions cramped inside a plexiglass sphere hanging beneath a B-17 bomber, surrounded by 2.50 caliber machine guns and absolutely nothing else. No armor, no protection, just you, two guns, and a 360-degree view of everything trying to kill you. The ball turret is statistically the most dangerous position on a B-17. It's the first thing German fighters target. Take out the belly gunner, and the entire underside of the bomber becomes a vulnerability. Ball turret gunners have the highest casualty rate of any bomber crew position. They also can't wear parachutes while operating the turret. There's no room. The parachute stays in the fuselage. If the aircraft is hit and the crew has to bail out, the ball turret gunner has to climb back up into the fuselage, retrieve his parachute, clip it on, then jump. If there's time, if the aircraft isn't spinning, if the fuselage isn't on fire, if the electrical system still works to rotate the turret to the exit position. A lot of ifs. The briefing officer, a major who's flown 32 missions and looks 60 years old despite being 34, runs through the tactical plan. 36 aircraft from the 303rd will join with formations from the 379th and 384th bomb groups. Total strike package: 108 bombers. Fighter escort to the German border, then you're on your own until the P-51s can meet you on the way back. Expected resistance: heavy flak over the target, and intelligence suggests at least 40 Luftwaffe fighters will intercept. Questions? Nobody asks questions. What's there to ask? You fly into Germany, you drop bombs, you try to survive. Simple. Cruise to your aircraft. Takeoff begins at 7:30. Good luck, gentlemen. Magee walks across the frost-covered airfield to his B-17, tail number 42 to 30,070, nicknamed Snap, Crackle, Pop, after the Kellogg's Rice Krispies mascots. His pilot, Lieutenant Edgar Ede Palmer, is already conducting the pre-flight inspection, walking around the bomber checking control surfaces, engines, tires. "Morning, Magee," Palmer says without looking up. "Ball turret looked good during yesterday's maintenance check. Oil pressure on number 3 engine is reading slightly low but within tolerances, should be fine." "Yes, sir." The crew assembles, 10 men. Pilot and co-pilot in the cockpit, navigator and bombardier in the nose, flight engineer at the top, turret radio operator at his station. 2 waist gunners covering the sides, tail gunner in the extreme rear, and Magee in the ball turret. Hanging beneath the fuselage like a fishing lure, they board through the rear hatch. The interior smells like hydraulic fluid, gun oil, and the fierce sweat of previous crews who flew this aircraft. The B-17 has completed 14 missions. Average bomber life expectancy is 15 missions before being shot down or damaged beyond repair. Lucky 15 today. Magee climbs into the ball turret while the aircraft is still on the ground, standard procedure. He settles into the cramped sphere, pulls the hatch closed above him, and tests the controls. The turret rotates smoothly. The guns traverse properly. The electrical systems all show green. His parachute, the one he can't wear while in the turret, is clipped to a hook in the fuselage directly above him, 3 feet away. Might as well be 3 miles if things go wrong. The engines start one by one. Wright R-1820 Cyclones, 1,200 horsepower each, 4 of them turning massive 3-blade propellers. The bomber vibrates with mechanical power. Radio check confirms all crew positions are operational. Snap, crackle, pop, cleared for takeoff, the tower radios. Palmer advances the throttles. The B-17 accelerates down the runway, lifts off, and climbs into the gray English morning sky. Below, the English countryside spreads out like a patchwork quilt: green fields, stone fences, villages that have existed since medieval times. Ahead, Germany, flak, fighters, a target that needs bombing. Magee rotates his turret, checking the view in all directions. Clear sky. 35 other bombers forming up into combat formation. Everything normal for now. 11:15 hours. 22,000 feet above Gotha, Germany. The flak starts at 20 miles from target, black puffs of smoke blossoming across the sky like poisonous flowers. Each puff represents an 88 missile detonating, throwing shrapnel in a lethal sphere 200 feet in diameter. The German anti-aircraft crews are good, very good. They've calculated the bomber formation's altitude, speed, and heading, and they're filling that exact volume of sky with explosive death. Magee watches from his ball turret as a B-17 200 yards to the left takes a direct hit. The shell penetrates the fuselage behind the wing root and detonates inside the bomb bay. The bomber doesn't explode, it disintegrates. One moment, it's a 65,000-pound aircraft carrying 10 men and 5,000 pounds of bombs. The next moment, it's debris tumbling through the sky and 10 parachutes. No, wait, only 7 parachutes. 3 men didn't make it out. Steady, Palmer's voice comes over the intercom. Bombardier, time to target, 90 seconds. Bomb bay doors opening. The bay doors swing wide beneath Magee's turret. Wind screams through the fuselage. Temperature drops 20 degrees instantly. Magee can see the bombs hanging in their racks, 2,250-pound general-purpose bombs, enough to crater the Messerschmitt factory and hopefully kill whatever production capacity exists there. More flak, closer. A burst detonates 30 feet from snap, crackle, pop, and shrapnel punches through the left wing. Magee feels the aircraft shudder. Warning lights flash on Palmer's instrument panel, fuel tank punctured but not catastrophically. They can make it back, probably. Bombs away. The B-17 lurches upward as 5,000 pounds drops from the belly. Magee watches the bombs tumble downward in a neat stick, falling toward the factory complex 4 miles below. Impact in 45 seconds. Whether they hit the target or miss into the surrounding city is the bombardier's problem, not his. The formation turns west, heading back toward England. The flak follows them, but less intense now. The bombers are leaving the target area, moving out of the heaviest concentration of anti-aircraft batteries. That's when the fighters arrive. Bandits, 11 o'clock high. Multiple contacts. Magee rotates his turret, scanning. There, dots on the horizon, growing rapidly larger. Focke-Wulf FW-190s, maybe 15 of them. Fast, aggressive, coming in from the sun where they're hard to spot until they're already firing. The first FW-190 screams through the formation at 400 miles per hour. Cannon shells stitching across a B-17's tail section. The tail gunner's position explodes in a spray of plexiglass and blood. The bomber's entire tail breaks off. The B-17 enters a flat spin, unrecoverable, already dead but still falling for another 4 miles before impact. Ball turret, watch for belly attacks, Palmer calls. Magee's job, the reason he's here. Protect the bomber's vulnerable underside from fighters coming up from below. He scans constantly, tracking movement, looking for the telltale glint of sunlight on aluminum that indicates an approaching fighter. There, FW-190 diving toward them from 5 o'clock low. Magee rotates the turret, leads the target, and opens fire. Both .50 caliber machine guns hammer, 50 rounds per second per gun. Tracers streak downward, converging on the fighter. Hits. He sees impacts dancing across the FW-190's wing. But it's not enough. The German fighter pulls up hard, probably damaged but not destroyed. Another fighter attacks from 3 o'clock. The right waist gunner engages. Magee doesn't see the result. He's already tracking a third fighter attempting a head-on attack through the formation's nose. The bombardier and navigator have guns in the nose compartment, and Magee hears them firing, but the FW-190 is closing too fast. Its 20 cannons already firing. The shells hit snap, crackle, pop. Amidships, one shell punches through the radio compartment, killing the radio operator instantly. Another hits the number 3 engine, which explodes in a shower of burning oil and torn metal. A third shell, and this is the critical one, detonates directly above Magee's ball turret. The explosion tears through the fuselage structure, shredding electrical lines, hydraulic lines, and control cables. The B-17 shudders violently. Alarms scream. The aircraft begins to roll left, nose dropping, entering an uncontrolled descent. Palmer fights the controls. Nothing responds. The control cables are severed. The bomber is no longer an aircraft. It's a 65,000-pound collection of debris that happens to still be mostly connected. Bail out, Palmer's voice over the intercom, barely audible through the chaos. Everyone out. Now, Magee reaches for the hatch above his ball turret, the one that opens into the fuselage where his parachute is clipped. The electrical system is dead. The turret won't rotate to the exit position. He's trapped. 11:22 hours. 22,000 feet and descending. Alan Magee is trapped in a plexiglass sphere attached to a dying aircraft that's spinning toward the ground at terminal velocity, and he has approximately 90 seconds before impact. The ball turret's electrical motor is dead. No power to rotate the turret to the access position. The manual hand crank is jammed, probably damaged by shrapnel from the same explosion that killed the electrical system. He tries anyway, cranking with desperate strength, but the mechanism won't budge. The turret is locked in place, the exit hatch facing away from the fuselage interior. He can't reach his parachute, can't climb out, can't do anything except wait for impact. Through the plexiglass, he watches the ground approach. They're over farmland now, fields and forests and small villages, spinning crazily as the B-17 tumbles. He can see other parachutes scattered across the sky. Some crew members made it out. That's good. But Magee is still in the turret, and the altitude indicator, still working despite the electrical failure, shows 18,000 feet, 17,000 feet, 16,000 feet. The bomber is in a flat spin, centrifugal force pinning him against the inside of the turret. Even if he could somehow force the hatch open, he couldn't climb out. The G-forces would prevent movement. He's locked in place by physics and mechanical failure. This is how he dies. 21 years old, never married, never even had a serious girlfriend. Joined the Army Air Forces to serve his country, to fight fascism, to do something meaningful. And he's going to die trapped in a plexiglass ball, watching the ground approach. 14,000 feet. He thinks about his mother, wonders if she'll get a telegram. "We regret to inform you." Standard military notification. They'll say he died in combat, heroically, in service to his country. They won't mention that he was trapped, helpless, watching death approach for 90 seconds. 12,000 feet. The bomber's spin is getting worse. Parts are tearing off. Wing sections, tail pieces, sections of fuselage. The aircraft is disintegrating in mid-air, structural failure from the combat damage and aerodynamic forces exceeding the airframe's limits. Soon there won't be a bomber anymore, just debris and Magee's ball turret falling independently, 10,000 feet. He should be terrified, should be screaming, but he's not. There's a strange calm, acceptance, shock. Maybe just the human mind protecting itself from existential terror by shutting down emotional response. He watches the ground approach with detached scientific interest. Terminal velocity for a human body is about 120 miles per hour. For a ball turret with its heavier mass and less aerodynamic drag, probably 200 miles per hour, maybe more. 8,000 feet. The bomber's wing tears off completely. The fuselage, or what's left of it, starts tumbling differently, no longer in a flat spin but an end-over-end rotation. Magee loses visual orientation. Sky, ground, spinning faster than his brain can process. 6,000 feet. Something tears loose above him, structural members separating, the ball turret mounting breaking free from the fuselage. Suddenly he's no longer attached to the bomber. He's falling independently, still trapped inside the turret but now in free fall. The sensation is bizarre, weightless but also heavy. The turret is tumbling, rotating in 3 dimensions, and Magee is pinned inside by centrifugal force. He can't tell which direction is up or down, just spinning, falling, waiting for impact. 4,000 feet. He closes his eyes. Doesn't want to see the moment of impact. Doesn't want to watch the ground rushing up at 200 miles per hour. Just wants it to be quick. Please let it be quick. 2,000 feet. Later, much later, ballistic experts will calculate that the ball turret was falling at approximately 180 miles per hour when it hit. The impact force would be roughly equivalent to being hit by a car traveling at highway speed. Unsurvivable under normal circumstances. Fatal 99.999% of the time. But this isn't normal circumstances. 1,000 feet. 500 feet. Alan Magee's ball turret, with him still inside, falls through the glass roof of the Saint-Nazaire train station in occupied France. And somehow, impossibly, he survives. 11-24 hours. Saint-Nazaire train station, France. The ball turret crashes through the steel and glass roof of the station at 180 miles per hour. The glass shatters, thousands of square feet of skylight exploding into fragments. The steel support beams bend but don't break, absorbing some of the kinetic energy. The turret punches through, tumbles, strikes a metal roof truss that deflects its trajectory, then crashes into the station's main floor. But not directly onto concrete. By sheer chance, by probability so low it shouldn't exist, the ball turret hits a luggage cart first. The wooden cart disintegrates, absorbing impact energy. The turret bounces, actually bounces, and strikes another cart. Then a bench. Then finally skids across the station floor, shedding velocity with each collision, until it comes to rest against a support pillar. The plexiglass sphere is shattered. The guns are twisted wreckage. The mounting brackets are bent beyond recognition. But the basic structure of the turret, designed to withstand 7G maneuvers and combat damage, has held together. And inside, Alan Magee is somehow still alive. He's unconscious. His right arm is shattered, compound fracture, bone protruding through skin. His right knee is dislocated. His nose is broken. He has a collapsed lung, internal bleeding, lacerations across his face and hands, and a concussion that will affect him for the rest of his life. But his heart is still beating. His lungs, the one that's not collapsed, is still drawing air. Against all probability, against all physics, against all reasonable expectation, he survived a 22,000-foot fall. The train station is chaos. German soldiers stationed at the adjacent garrison heard the crash and are rushing toward the building. French civilians, travelers waiting for trains, are screaming, running, trying to understand what just fell through the roof. Some think it's a bomb that hasn't exploded yet. Others recognize it as aircraft debris. Obergefreiter Klaus Richter, a Wehrmacht soldier 26 years old from München, arrives first. He approaches the wreckage carefully, rifle ready, expecting. He's not sure what. A bomb, a weapon, some new Allied terror device. Then he sees the American uniform visible through the shattered plexiglass. Mein Gott, Richter breathes. Es ist ein Mensch. It's a person. He calls for a medic. Other German soldiers arrive, pry open what's left of the turret hatch, and carefully extract Magee. He's limp, barely breathing, clearly dying. Multiple fractures. Obvious internal injuries. Nobody survives this kind of trauma, but a German military doctor, Dr. Friedrich Kurz, stationed at Saint-Nazaire, examines Magee and makes a decision that will save his life. Bring him to the garrison hospital, now. Herr Doctor, he's the enemy. He's a soldier who fell 20,000 feet and somehow didn't die on impact. That deserves medical attention. Move him. Carefully, They transport Magee to the German military hospital in Saint-Nazaire. Dr. Kurz performs emergency surgery, setting the broken arm, relocating the knee, treating the collapsed lung, transfusing blood to replace what he's lost. The surgery takes 6 hours. Magee's chances of survival are estimated at less than 10%. But he doesn't die. He wakes up 3 days later in a hospital bed, surrounded by German military police, with no memory of the fall beyond, closing his eyes at 2,000 feet. "You are very lucky," Dr. Kurz tells him in careful English. "Or very unlucky, depending on perspective. You fell from the sky, through a train station roof. You should be dead." "Where am I?" Magee's voice is barely a whisper, throat raw from intubation. "Saint-Nazaire, France. You are a prisoner of war. You will be transferred to a POW camp when you're stable enough for transport." "My crew," Kurz hesitates. "5 parachutes were recovered. 5 men captured alive. The rest?" He doesn't finish. Doesn't need to. 5 survivors out of 10. And Magee, the one who didn't have a parachute, is one of them. Over the following weeks, Magee's story spreads through both Allied and German military intelligence. A ball turret gunner who fell 22,000 feet without a parachute and survived. Impossible, but documented, witnessed by dozens of French civilians and German soldiers. Medically verified by Dr. Kurz's surgical reports. The fall should have killed him. The impact should have liquefied his organs. The trauma should have been instantly fatal. But the glass roof absorbed some energy. The luggage carts absorbed more. The multiple bounces and collisions dissipated kinetic energy gradually rather than instantaneously. And Magee's position inside the ball turret, curled in a semi-fetal position due to the cramped space, may have distributed impact forces more favorably than a spread-eagle fall would have. Still 22,000 feet, no parachute, and somehow he lived to tell the story. June 1945, Stalag Luft III, Germany. 15 months after the fall. Alan Magee is still alive, which surprises him every morning he wakes up. He spent 2 months in the German military hospital in Saint-Nazaire before being transferred to Stalag Luft III, the famous POW camp that would later be known for the Great Escape. His right arm healed, but incorrectly. The bones fused at a slight angle, limiting his range of motion permanently. His knee works, but it aches constantly, especially in cold weather. The collapsed lung left him with reduced respiratory capacity. He'll never run a marathon, never climb mountains, never do any of the physical activities he took for granted at 21. But he's alive. The other POWs treat him like a myth made flesh. "You're the guy who fell from 20,000 feet, they ask, disbelieving. "Without a parachute, through a train station roof." "I was in the ball turret," Magee explains for the 100th time. "It protected me, sort of. I don't really remember the impact, just waking up in a German hospital. But you fell 4 miles, 4 miles. People don't survive that. I know I shouldn't have. But here I am." The Germans treat him with a bizarre mixture of respect and curiosity. Some guards call him Der Wundermann, the miracle man. Others think he's lying, that Allied propaganda made up the story to boost morale. But Dr. Kurz's medical reports are in the camp files. Multiple witnesses. Photographic evidence of the damaged train station. It's documented, verified, real. In May 1945, the war in Europe ends. Soviet forces liberate Stalag Luft III. Magee and thousands of other POWs are repatriated to Allied control, then eventually shipped back to the United States. He arrives in New York Harbor in July 1945, 22 years old, permanently injured, having survived combat operations, a 22,000-foot fall, and 15 months as a POW. The Army Air Forces wants to celebrate him. Medal ceremonies, publicity tour, newsreel interviews. The man who fell from the sky and lived. American resilience. Proof that our boys can survive anything. But Magee doesn't want publicity. Doesn't want to be a symbol or propaganda tool. He just wants to go home to New Jersey, see his mother, try to rebuild a life that got interrupted by war. The Army awards him the Air Medal, the Purple Heart, and a discharge with full medical benefits. They offer him a publicity tour, speeches, radio appearances, newsreel features. He declines. "I'm not a hero," he tells the Army publicity officer. "I'm a guy who got shot down and got lucky, that's all. But the story is that 9 guys on my crew didn't make it home. 5 of us did. I'm not special. I'm just lucky." He goes home, works various jobs. His injuries prevent anything physically demanding, but he finds work in accounting, office management, quiet jobs that don't require explaining why his right arm doesn't bend quite right or why he limps on cold days. He marries, has children, lives a normal life in suburban New Jersey. He doesn't talk about the war much. When people ask about his limp or his arm, he says, "old injury," and changes the subject. Only occasionally, when reporters track him down on anniversaries or when aviation historians want to interview him, does he discuss the fall. "What was it like?" they always ask. "Falling 22,000 feet knowing you were going to die." "I don't remember most of it," he says honestly. "I remember being trapped. I remember closing my eyes. Then I remember waking up in a hospital. Everything between is just blank. Maybe that's a mercy. Maybe God or fate or luck decided I'd been through enough and took away the memory of the worst part." "Do you think about it often?" "Every time I look at my arm. Every time my knee hurts. Every time I see an airplane." He pauses. "But I'm alive. I got to have a family, got to live a life. 5 guys from my crew didn't. I think about them more than I think about the fall." Alan Magee died in 2003, age 84, from natural causes. He fell 22,000 feet without a parachute and lived another 59 years. The odds of surviving such a fall are estimated at less than 1 in a million. But sometimes, rarely, incredibly, miraculously, the impossible happens. And someone lives to tell the story.